Welcome back. You are tuning into People Are Complicated, where we are continuing our mini-series today where we talk with talent, learning, and development folks about how do you actually get people to engage in learning today at work when there is just so much else on their plate. Today we are talking with Nuno Pereira. He is coming to us from Bristol-Myers Squibb, and he is responsible for programming that is both about soft skills and hard skills. I know soft skills is kind of a controversial word. Human skills, call it what you would like. He is balancing the mix of both. He also gets into some interesting personal learnings. How is he bringing himself into all of what he is building as an immigrant, as somebody who's had very diverse experiences in multiple countries. And of course, we get into how at the end of the day, it is so worth it when you just understand and get to hear from individuals how much you have impacted their lives. It's a very rich conversation. I'm excited for you to listen in with my conversation with Nuno. All right, Nuno, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to have you here all the way from across the ocean in London. Share with us real quick. You were starting to tell me before we recorded a bit about what you focus on. Explain that for everyone.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a great pleasure talking to you about this. I was telling you a little bit of what I do currently in Bristol-Myers Squibb in UK. So I'm a commercialization learning trainer. So I'm supporting the field sales teams by developing some training programs that helps them to become more efficient. So I'm from Skills Gap, from the soft skills, which I call them interpersonal skills, to some value proposition, the way that they reach to our customers and hopefully patients. So that's what I do. Building relationships, connection, and building the trust. That's what I do every day.
Amazing. All right, so Nuno, you know the drill. I just have two questions for you. You work in an organization with over 27,000 employees spread across the world. When you're thinking about and all your experiences about really trying to help deliver learning experiences to people at scale, what has been the biggest challenge for you?
When you have massive amounts of people, but we look at 27,000 employees, and each 27,000 employees are one individual person with unique characteristics, with unique personalities. And I think that the biggest challenge sometimes is, I don't want to say pleasing everyone because you can't, but finding common grounds to support. And there's times where someone's going to be very happy, and the same decision is going to make someone not as exciting or creating some conflict into that. And I think, and this past few days, I was talking to to some of coworkers, and I said, why did I choose to go into HR? It's talking about people, and sometimes I wish I could have a job where I don't have to engage much with people. But I say that in the first 10 seconds of an interaction, after you start to get to know more the people and building those connections. And some people it's easier to do that, others are not. So adapting, getting to know someone is one of the biggest challenges. But I think at the same time, it's the most rewarding piece of what I do, and especially those who work in people development and human resources organization. I would definitely say that this is the biggest challenge that I've been facing. And you never overcome this one, I think.
No, I mean, the name of this podcast is People Are Complicated because you think you can understand a type of person and you meet somebody new, you try to put them in the same box and you get surprised because people are just so complicated.
And I was reflecting, I was talking to some colleagues on how to approach these, and I tend to go with the same approach to everyone. And that's when you start to realize that then it works very well for some because, I like your approach, but others create resistance. And you have to adapt. You have to be malleable to understand what do the other want. And there's two agendas. There's what they want from you and what you want from you as well. And how you're going to create that bridge is definitely by far the biggest challenge that you're going to have into people, working with people, I'd say so.
How do you do that at scale? Like, how do you see that show up in like an LMS, or you know what I mean, like where you're not just like inviting people in individually you get to talk to them face to face or in a workshop, right? Like, how do you handle that?
I think authenticity. There's those people you could immediately see that they're talking to you because they want something from you.
Yeah.
And then there's the other side where people talk to you because they genuinely want to know you.
Yeah.
And I think that the way that I approach things, as I was saying, it could be X amount of employees, but X amount of people. And there is something, and I was doing early careers, I would always tell this, just because you don't have any work experience, there is always something you can teach, regardless of how many years of experience that person has. Maybe
Hmm.
they're close to the end of their career and you're just in the beginning, but there's something that you can bring to them. And I apply the same principles. I tend to give this type of advice and I tend to follow them, is get to know them really genuinely, get to know who they are, where do they come from, what did they study, what do they aim to achieve, where do they want to go, what ticks them as well. I think it's always a fun thing to ask what makes them happy and smile and things like that. And you build genuine connections. But maybe one day you need someone's help, and that person is gonna remember how you made them feel, because we words are empty, but feelings, they kind of stay in your mind, so they tend to remember how you made them feel. And I
Yeah.
think I felt this in times of need, where I request help, and I was never said no, because I think I was able to build those genuine connections.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I can pick up you're a highly empathetic person and you care a lot for people and building true relationships. And at the same time, sometimes it wears you down so much. You say, I wish I didn't work in HR.
It's I think everyone who works at HR says the same thing,
I
so
agree.
100% certain on that one.
Yeah, I work with a lot of software engineers who say, it's easier to work with computers because they do exactly what I write into them, and then people are complicated.
But you know what? I think you do a task every day and you repeat the task, and but then you have an interaction with X and Y person, and it's a
Hmm.
whole different story. And I had a teacher in university back in Portugal who said, you guys are the absolute experts and the amazing people, because those who study exact sciences, tomorrow we know that a reaction occurs the same way if we talk about chemistry or science. But
Yep.
then I studied international relations, and we don't know what's going to happen on the geopolitical thing, and what's going to happen on human mind, and certain interactions. So I think it has a different flavor
Yeah.
to the professional life.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to throw in a surprise question for you, Nuno, because you yourself has been an immigrant to two separate countries and you care a lot about, cultural change. And I'm assuming part of that is just like, cultural change inside an organization, but you also think about culture in terms of international culture and you studied, international relations. So how do you think that influences the way that you approach a diverse audience, even if, you're just teaching people who are in London, like they're still diverse in many ways, right? How does that change that all of that information in your head about different cultures, about cultural change inside an organization? How does that influence how you approach your work?
One thing about my organization, and I felt this when I moved from the US to the UK, the culture didn't change. I was a little bit, okay, US is one thing, the UK is going to be another thing. But the organizational culture didn't change. I knew
Mm,
exactly that I could approach people the same way that I approached people in US, and vice versa when I was still there and trying to make my connections in UK. I think when you know this, things become easier. It
mm,
just gets a little bit harder when you have new hires, and especially when I was in early careers, you have students who come out of university through the graduate scheme, and they were so surprised to understand that we have such an open culture and things like that. And I think that the shock isn't there. Those new hires coming and suddenly realizing, oh, I never thought. I thought that people worked in pharma were this way. They were very hierarchical, and you almost need a permission to approach them
yeah.
in the office or on Teams. So I think that helps. And myself being an immigrant, I had the same thing. I'm Portuguese, and our culture is definitely a little bit more hierarchical, at least in terms of working. I remember having a
Mhm.
conversation with my manager in the US that when I was back home, almost talking to the owner of the organization, talking to your manager, it was a very almost you had to talk to their assistant to get there. Then I suddenly felt that was not the case in the company where I work for. then adapting, giving you those skills to adapt. I think we were talking a little bit about resilience
Yeah.
just before, and understanding that it's not going to be easy all the time. Then going through that process makes things a little bit easier, and it apply the same thing into the culture or organizational culture, changing countries and things like that. I think it's the same principle. So I would say that that helps me helping others, understanding. Even I started a new job, I started a new role. It feels uncomfortable because suddenly there's a lot to navigate, a lot of things. Before I was comfortable doing what I'm doing, now I'm not. But I've
Hmm.
been in this situation many times as a personal circumstances, professional circumstances, and in the end, everything works out. But
Hmm.
patience is a key thing there, I would say,
And curiosity, it sounds like,
and
being
curiosity,
adaptable.
asking the questions all the time.
All right, Nuno, my last question for you. What has been something successful for you? What's your greatest win when it comes to developing people at scale?
Not long ago, but on my career as an early careers program manager, biggest win that I got is seeing a graduate coming fresh from uni start to baby steps into the organization, and then two
Hmm.
years later securing a permanent job with the company. I think every time that happens, I know and I feel that I've had a direct impact into someone's life and career,
Yeah.
and that was the most the biggest wins that I would say. Obviously, if we go into the personal
Yeah.
side, I mean, coming to London, having my own place, having my own job in a very good company, and all of that. But I think the biggest win is that learning process that I help people to go through, and then succeeding by the end of that process. I was reflecting a lot before this on what is my biggest win, and I again could think of the personal ones, but I think this is the one that I resonate the most.
Yeah, you have faced a lot of adversity, a lot of scenarios outside of your control, a lot of unknowns, being moving countries and languages and cultures, and you're taking that and you're putting it into how you design programs, and especially the one you talked about with early career, like that those students are coming in with some level of culture shock, right? Because it's a new organization, it's a new way of doing things. They're leaving school, they're coming into an organization, and for you, the greatest win is seeing those individual success stories that have come out of what you've made programmatic and scalable. But it all comes back down to those specific people and their individual experiences.
It's if you watch The Office before,
I do.
and Michael Scott says that it's not about the companies or the industry, it's about the people,
Yeah.
and people never change, or people are going to be tomorrow, regardless of what you're selling. You're going to work with people, and I think understanding this, and maybe for the companies more and more, it's the people who are our biggest assets. Yes,
Yeah.
we have the brands, we have the things that we sell, but you only make those things alive and come true with people. And I think developing people to be better people
Yeah.
is a big reward for myself, definitely.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Nuno, thank you so much for joining us on People Are
Thank you.
Complicated. Any last words? Anything we didn't cover that you'd like to share with the audience?
Uh, that's a very tough question because I go and think, did I say everything that I wanted to say? I think uh, going back to the resilience speed a
Yeah.
bit, and I think some, especially to those who are starting their career or going through some hardship, and things end up turning well. And personally, I've been through some hardship not very long time ago, and the emotional tries to take a little bit care of us. But
Yeah.
things in the end work out, and we don't know exactly what does that look like. Things work out, and maybe open doors. I never thought about myself that I was going to do commercialization learning, for example. I thought would go to an HR business partner or a talent manager. But here I am, and I'm enjoying much, even though I'm just here for two weeks and a few days. But I'm enjoying the learning process. So I would say trust the process. I would say
And who knows? You're probably still going to end up in talent management or as an HR business partner someday, right?
the doors are open. I think the universe knows what I want, so it'll show me the way.
resilience, curiosity, huge life skills. All right, Nuno, thank you so very much for joining us, and we look forward to sharing this with folks.
Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you for tuning in to this special episode of People Are Complicated. As with everything we do here at Cloverleaf, this mini-series has been a labor of love with many cross-functional folks involved. So special thank you to Evan Schultz for helping to set up things that really got us guests in the door. Thank you to Nicole Tiffany for video production, video editing, design, thumbnails, all things that have made this look good, including this mural behind me and the lighting around me. And also thanks to Evan Doyle for all the execution support you get to make this a thing that happens, that is published out in the world, that is seen on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. And also thanks to Jake Owens for video editing support on getting this out on socials. I also want to say that if you are a talent learning and development person and you want to be included on our episodes, you can always reach out to me just directly on LinkedIn, Kirsten Moorfield. That's the best place to really find me and get in touch with me. Just DM me there, send a connection request. If you are also interested in what the heck is Cloverleaf and what do we do, let me tell you. This episode is brought to you by the company that I run in my day job, Cloverleaf.me. I am the Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder of Cloverleaf, where we have invented what we call automated coaching. We take the common behavioral assessments and strengths assessments like Clifton Strengths, DISC, Enneagram, 16 types, what you've already invested so much into, and we turn it into just-in-time coaching nuggets that are pushed to people in the tools they work in every day. So Slack, email, Microsoft Teams, calendar, and we coach people on how do you do your best work today? What are some blind spots you might have? What are just nuggets that you need to know to be successful? But of course, nobody works on an island. We work through each other, with each other. So the most important aspect is this communal collective development that we have created where you are getting coaching on the people around you. Who are you going to meet with? What's the group dynamic in the room? If you're having conflict with somebody, just type in what you need help with, and our tool will give coaching to your folks right there in the flow of work. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can find out on cloverleaf.me. And of course, if you have enjoyed this episode, if you've gotten any good nuggets out of it, or you know other people who you would like to share it with, please just share it directly, share it on your LinkedIn or wherever you prefer to be social on the internet. And of course, leave a review wherever you are listening or watching this. If you leave us a review, it really helps more people find us. Thank you so much for tuning in. More next time.